So excited to have you here today for our next microlearning on purposeful self-promotion with Lisa Bragg. Let me tell you something. Though it doesn't seem like it right now, I speak for a living. I'm active on social media. I post on LinkedIn every day. This whole notion of self-promotion is still difficult for me. Most of my life, I was the person who was behind the scenes. I was a person allowing others to take the spotlight. I created their decks where I put in the work to make other people look good. And honestly, as an introvert, I didn't mind. I always told myself and others that I felt more comfortable being behind the scenes. So what you're seeing today has only really been in fruition for the past 2-3 years. Self-promotion felt like a dirty word to me. So I grew up in an immigrant family where we were taught to put our heads down, to work hard, and we would eventually be rewarded. Someone would notice us eventually. So get good grades, go to college, and your life will be set. How many of us were told this same fable? Nod your head. What I learned in corporate America is that's usually not the case. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to be able to articulate your accomplishments. You need to be able to outline and detail what you've contributed and how you've helped move the organization, the company ahead. Here's the thing. No one cares about your future the way you do. Maybe your mom, your dad, maybe your nana and your papa, they might care about your future as much as you. But besides them, no one cares more about your future than you. And don't get me wrong, finding mentors, sponsors, and advocates are crucial to career success, and everyone should have and find one. But never forget that you must be your biggest advocate. No one will fight for your career as much as you. No one. So, some tough love before we begin. There are people who are less talented than you doing what you want to do simply because they advocated for themselves. Once again, in reality, no one cares about your future the way you do. And if you want to achieve remarkable results, if you want to live the life you've always dreamed, it's up to you to talk about your successes and accomplishments. So without further ado, Lisa Bragg is an author, speaker, and advisor who helps leaders at all levels navigate savvy self-promotion that is authentic and gets results. Literally written the book on how to talk about success. Her book, Bragging Rights, How to Talk About Your Work Using Purposeful Self-Promotion, is out now. It's an amazing read. She is the founder of MediaFace, a Toronto-based content and consulting firm. She was also a TV reporter and anchor for over 15 years. Let's welcome Lisa Bragg to the show. Woohoo! Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
A few stats that will help set the mood for this call. 74% of employees believe that self-promotion is important for career advancement. 62% of employees say that they are not comfortable with self-promotion. 62%. It's not just you. Men are more likely than women to self-promote. Millennials are more likely than Gen X and baby boomers to self-promote. And employees who self-promote are more likely to be promoted and earn higher salaries. So first question, and you've probably heard this a million times, the whole irony that your last name is Bragg. How do you define bragging?
So it's a little bit of make lemonade. It's my maiden name. It's from birth. And it was about when I was 13. My daughter's 13 right now. And I realized that my last name meant something to other people. I was going for the gold stars. I wanted the 100%. I wanted to do all these things and I would do them. And then people would say to me, oh, you're going to brag about it. And I have pretty big eyes. So I don't know if you saw my eye rolling enough. So you start to realize that your last name means something to other people. And that when you're successful, people have feelings about other people's successes. So I learned that really young to start to hide myself. So I wouldn't always tell people the things I was doing. They would find out and I would try to hide them. And then I decided to be, as you mentioned, Lana, a broadcast journalist, which you think is all about me. But back in my day, it was really always about the story and finding those interesting people. I like to often go against the grain. So journalism can be very pack-based. So you'd follow along with whoever's getting the same quotes. But I always wanted to go the other way to find those interesting people who weren't always on camera. It was a challenge to myself. So I'd go and I'd say, hey, Sheila, do you want to be on camera? You're this expert in this. And Sheila would always say, who, me? Oh, I'm not the expert. Go down the hall to Paul or John. And it would happen over and over again. And the people that did take the chance, the risk to be on camera with me, I would often see them do more media. And then I would see them get more opportunities because of that. Often I had a little bit of extra time, so I'd give them some media coaching because it was really that important for me to have different characters in my story than the same old. So when I saw that was really interesting to me, how being a subject matter expert can really help elevate your career. And then I started a content company back in 2007, which just seems like a lifetime ago, before all the video and the podcasts and e-learning. That's what we were doing and helping subject matter experts get online for the first time. And I saw from them what they could do, where their careers went. And that's what started me on really helping more coaching and doing workshops and keynotes on bragging and self-promotion. So to get back to your very first question though, bragging, what does bragging mean? And bragging means nowadays to talk about one's success with pride. And I really, truly believe that pride also means self-love. So when we give ourselves that pat on the back, we need more self-love. And if you're listening in today, as you're listening in today, you know that we need to love ourselves a little bit more and honor our successes. And bragging didn't always mean this the way we treat it now. A lot of people feel icky with it. It actually meant back in 1325, shine and shimmer. And it meant bravery. And then it's as we moved from being this, agricultural societies, then into rulers. We didn't want to stick out our necks too far with the ruler, but we could be seen and our kin would see us and our family would know Lisa should really not do that job, but she's probably really good at that job. Or it's totally should be Anne doing that job because Anne is really good at that. And so our family, our grandmothers would tell everyone what we're good at. And so that's when we moved into the factory system, heading into cities. And some of us wanted to go for the steady paycheck and some of us didn't want to go, but we were forced to. That's where we lost a lot of that. And we just wanted to stay small, stay hidden, get that steady paycheck, put your head down, do good work, and eventually someone will notice you. So obviously I'm really passionate about it, but I can see the red thread through all of it for me. Yeah.
Can you repeat what your definition again? Because it was so powerful and I wanted to type it in
Yeah, it's talking about your success with pride. So we need to talk about our successes with pride, and pride is self-love. So when you talk about your successes, that's the way it is. So it's not, we get so confused with the word self-aggrandizement, and that's that puffery that I'm better than you and I'm going to put you down. That's what that is. And we get confused because it's partly because it's such a big word, but also because bragging, it's had its weight to it. When I would talk to people, it's icky. Icky is the word to describe it because we're just not comfortable with it because we've been trained for a while now, multi-generations, to not feel comfortable with talking about our successes. But we're so comfortable with talking about our failures and self-deprecation. Oh, that's a compliment. Oh, no, not me. Here's all the million of ways I failed today. And another one, just because I don't want to talk about my successes. And when we do that, it's a disservice to everyone around us.
That's so beautiful, talking about your success with pride and that it's a form of self-love. I think there's so much beauty in that. And Trina writes in the comments, honoring our successes. That's so beautiful. So why is self-promotion important? And most people believe that you should really, you speak on this a little bit, that we should let our reputation speak for itself. Yet you challenge that. Why?
Yeah. So our brag is the thing that we're proud of. And the self-promotion, those are all the things that we send out into the world. So this is part of my self-promotion. Anything that I send out, video, blog, podcast, those are the ways we transmit it. So just to get that definition out. But it's that we are so taught to be hidden gems and that we're not comfortable with telling other people all of our successes. I think that's a big piece of it. Lana, I think I got lost in my definition for you. What was the second part of your question?
Oh, sorry. The second question is, most people believe that you should let your reputation speak for itself.
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And you know what? Another thing is we wait for perfection, or we're so worried about being perfect, and none of this work is about being perfect. So right there in the moment, I forgot my spot, and not worrying about being perfect is always a gift to ourselves. So allow that to happen. But I think we worry about our reputation so much, and that we have to make everything perfect to move forward. I have to worry about all the things of my past. Instead, what I want all of us to do is move forward to the future. So always market to where you want to go. Yes, you're already all great. I know that. So our reputation is good, but we shouldn't always worry about stuffing more into our reputation. Often that's, I need another certificate. I need to shore this up because the past isn't strong enough, we think. Where a lot of people, they only go forward based on a promise. When we're always worried about our reputation, we just make lateral moves instead of doing it on the future me, that I will be able to do this. Maybe it's not yet. So that's our growth mindset, not yet, but there's the yet, and knowing that we want to forecast that instead of staying in the past. And our reputations are the past. Where your brand promise, I don't go too deeply into brand because I think it's all too much made up, but the promise of our future is what we can offer people and show them the way, show them the things that connect. But it's about where are you going next instead of worrying about where you've been.
And Michelle Cordy in the comments says she loves the saying, be perfectly imperfect.
Exactly.
And while you were talking, it reminded me of this stat in terms of chasing perfection. And men would apply to jobs with only 60% of the qualifications, where women waited till they had 100%. And if you think about it, if you wait till you have 100%, you are probably too overqualified for that job, right?
Yeah. And then we end up making lateral moves or jobs that we are way too qualified for. So we need to stretch. And I have a few stories about that in the book, but we need to stretch ourselves to say, you know what, I have about 65% or even less, and go for it, because you never know what they're actually looking for. The thing is, a lot of women like to follow all the rules. And all these rules that we have, so some of the rules from the factory era, don't ruffle feathers, keep your head down, do good work, and eventually someone will notice you, don't rock the boat. These are all the rules that we have, where often young boys, we teach them to play outside of the rules, color outside of everything, and do those things. So it's a lot of how we're trained really young to stay in line and follow those rules. I think it's also socioeconomic. People who aren't from affluent families often follow the rules much more than people who have greater affluence. So there's all the social constructs behind why we play these ways, but it's that we wait until it's a lateral move isn't good. So we need to show up in all of our glory right away and own whatever it is that we're going to do.
So why do you think, Lisa, people are so uncomfortable with self-promotion?
I think it's because we've been over and over again told, put your head down, do good work, and eventually someone will notice you. We've also been told that bragging violates modesty norms. And if you were that good, your work would speak for itself. So I think we believe that. And it's so much easier to put it on someone else. someone else will do this work for me. A lot of leaders report that to me in the research. I conducted worldwide research on this, and they would say people didn't want to necessarily self-advocate. They would put it on me to make sure that I was shining a light on them, which a good leader wants to do. That's a lot of work and a lot of pressure on someone else. Where if you have that autonomy to say, I'm going to self-advocate, I'm going to put myself out there. I think the truth of it is it's risky. We are putting ourselves out there and saying, hey, I've done this thing. Look what I've done. So we have that risk issue. We also have that for so long, so many magazines and business journals have said self-promotion and bragging is dangerous. There's penalties if you do it. And so in my literature review for the book, I looked at those surveys and the research done, and I found that a lot of them were done based on American university students. So interesting. They're of an age, you want to fit in when you're 20, 21, 22 years old. You just want to fit in. You're still of that, I just want to stay with my group and I don't want to stand out. But when you're older, you realize, yes, we have to fit in. To have cohesion, we need to fit in, but we also need to stand out so people know that how we're here to serve. So that research doesn't quite match the world of work. And so when I did this international research, I found so much more, and the richness, why people realize they do need to self-promote and brag and own their accomplishments. And it's not in the book, but there may be no I in team, but there is an I in credit. And so we have to learn and how to take credit for things that we've achieved.
I love that. There's an I in credit. So you actually mentioned that research, it was actually the largest research on bragging. Highlight a few results. What were some of the highlights of that study?
Yeah. You know what? I am my own book, because when you're saying it's the largest, I'm like, okay, did I qualify this? Because when you make claims, you want to have, here's all my home, all my background, here's all my research, but it is. And so many people participated, and you can still participate too. It's on my website. And a lot of people found it quite introspective, taking the time to think about why they find bragging self-promotion so challenging. And what I found, though, is that 2% of people will turn around and brag about themselves. 13% of people will ignore you if you brag to them. But 85% of people who hear you bragging are actually cheering for you. We are cheering for you. So most of us want to hear stories of success. So that piece of the research I thought was really empowering and really exciting, that people do want to cheer for others. I think it was about 75% of people have said that they've had their work stolen, their credit stolen for work. And so that's not, hey, I did this work for this leader and she took credit for it. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that they took out of my inbox and put it in their inbox and peeled off my name and erased me. That many people have had their credit stolen because when you leave credit lying around, somebody's going to take it. So when you leave your work around, somebody's going to steal it on you. So you have to make sure that your name is firmly attached to it and you're letting people know that you deserve credit for that work. So I thought those were really interesting, but people are cheering for us. And then I think it was about 85% of people realize, especially after the pandemic and during the pandemic and after, that they need to self-promote more, and that it was something that they hadn't learned to do and that they needed to do it. So most of us are in the same camp. We really realize that to get ahead in this era that we're living in now, we need to do it. So now it's about, how do I do that? And how do I move forward?
Yeah, that was definitely the case for me. So I started, I guess, working on my own personal brand when I got laid off of Fortune magazine, like at the beginning of the pandemic. And I was like, oh shit, I'm starting a company and I have no marketing budget. So let me just post every day. And the funny thing too is that I started posting as Community of 7, and people always think that I have these social media writers posting for me, but it's just me writing. And sometimes I'd be like taking a nature walk and I'm just be posting. It's not some huge strategy or anything. And I only started posting as myself, Lan Fan, probably like a year ago or a year and a half, because it felt icky. Like I was like, I could post as Community of 7. I could do this for other companies, but me, that's I don't want to seem like I'm bragging or that I'm a thought leader. And I realized that I'm not a thought leader, I'm a teacher. And I've always been a teacher at heart. And so I believe that we're all teachers and students. And so in order to be a good teacher, you need to be a good student. In order to be a good student and to learn, you need to teach others.
Yeah.
And I think that mindset of the paradigm shift for me and why I got more comfortable, I guess, posting content on social media was not to get famous or was not even to build my business. It was, how can I help that one person reading this content? How could I help one person who might be having a bad day or not lacking the confidence to speak up? And when you tap into the why, everything else becomes a little bit easier, because it was very difficult for me to post content, thought leadership, do an interview like this if it was about me promoting myself. But if it was me helping people, then it made it a lot easier for me to tap into that internal reserve to accomplish this. So I find it really interesting in your book, your research found that there was a corrosiveness to being invisible. And that shook me to my core, because even though I've had senior roles in my past, I've always felt a little invisible because I was the person creating the deck. I was the person making other people look good. And I was just behind the scenes. And there's so many experiences where people would take my work and talk more about that, because I think a lot of people that I talk to do, even though they might be senior in their roles, they feel invisible.
And that invisibility, like I said, it's so corrosive that it eats away at people. And that's often why people will leave. So they will feel that hidden gem that I'm doing all the work. They'll also feel that so often they're doing all the work and they're doing more work because we have be so good they can't ignore you. How much better do I have to be? I better work more. And I better put more hours in and I better show. So we're doing all this more and we're not being seen because we're waiting for other people to talk about us. So there's a lot to unpack with that, but we're waiting on other people, and that corrosiveness though eats away, and then people leave. Because, the only time that we're really allowed, given permission from everything to brag and self-promote, is when we've lost our jobs. So going back to you, when you lost yours, it's okay, I have to do it, or I'm leaving, getting set up to leave. So now I have to do my resume and I have to talk about all my successes there. So we wait until these life-changing moments to do it, or we're getting set to leave our company. So we're doing it all. And so often people also said they don't want to get a promotion within the company that they're in, because it's still a culture really hard to brag and self-promote with inside a company. So they'll go outside to be able to do it. So giving themselves permission once they leave. So interesting about that, where if you set up a culture inside your organization of celebrating successes, starting a brag book and encouraging people to talk about success, then you'll have people who will want to stay with you longer, versus saying, I need to get a promotion. I need to get something. I'm going to get out of this place so I can actually do those things and talk about myself. So again, it's how we treat people, and that we want people to be, people want people to be in the background. So they don't want everyone talking about their successes, because we need those people who are doing all the do, right? And so that's problematic.
I just heard angels sing. I'm like, we're basically saying out loud what all of us have experienced in corporate America, right? Because it tends to be, do you guys watch Succession? So the season just ended, but for those who've watched Succession, it talks about a very narcissistic family in the media world. And there's so many narcissists and people who are egotistical that are in power. And so you have these people leeching off of the work of the rest of the company, right? And I think that's where you in some ways allow it, because the culture in some ways forces this kind of systematic, only a few people within the organization are allowed to speak. And I've seen a lot of that within organizations, right? Oh, only the CEO or the C-suite can speak. If you're a director, VP, or below, please, you need to get approval from PR, right? And so there's that double standard. So you mentioned a brag book. Tell me more about that. What is it? And what are some other tips that you can give to the folks who are on this call in terms of things that they can work to get better at self-promotion?
Yeah. So don't wait till you have to leave a job or you want to do something special. Start collecting all of those awesome things along the way. So things meaning compliments or thank you notes. Whenever you get something from someone else that says you've done a good job, take them off the internet in some way. So whatever, if it's on email, interweb, or whatever it is that you have, take them off the server if you're allowed and have them in a file on your desk computer or print them out. I know that's so old school, or write them in a journal, because you don't want to leave things in an email, because if you end up losing your job or a server goes down, then you've lost that information. And it's always, people think, I don't remember them all. And then we don't have those things along the way that gives us those, hey, I did this, good job, especially on those bad days. So make sure that you're collecting kudos as you go. And I challenge people to do some self-reflection and think about a little bit, what are some compliments that have been given to me in the last few weeks, and grab those and bring them down and have them on your desktop so that you have them close by. So that's one thing I want you to do today, and just take 10 minutes. I don't need you to go way back in time unless there's some that really stand out, but starting today, do a 10-minute, go through emails, go through whatever social media, grab those kudos and save them. And then moving forward, whenever you get one, collect it. I also want you to collect anything that you think you should have gotten kudos for. I want you to write it for yourself. I'm going to give myself kudos for this job well done, and have it there. So we're collecting a brag book for ourselves, for some self-reflection, to know our value and thinking about what all the good work we've done and where we want to go. And then we're also collecting it for anyone that's going to be around us. So if you are on a team and you have a leader, you're collecting that information as data to give to her and say, hey, here are the great things that I've done. So it's evidence of your awesomeness, because our leaders are so busy doing their things, and they're also fighting fires. They're also out for their own career, that by you having your own brag book, that's your own piece of self-advocacy. So starting with that is one of the easiest pieces that you can do today. It'll also make you feel good on those days that you don't good. And Suzanne, yeah, kudos called ups. That's exactly it. So that is exactly whatever you want to title it, ups, shine, brag book. It's right there, that it's all those little pieces that you can say and point to. And that's, you know what, I've done a good job. Like, I've kept my thank you cards from broadcasting. And then with my media company, keep those things and don't just dismiss them and throw them out. We need to have them there as markers, moments of our work. So often it's, oh no, I'll post when I have that award and I'm looking really like spiffy. So we need to see the moments along the way. And those small kudos are the moments that matter. So share those moments with people too. Don't just keep them inside, but share them, because moments matter and not just milestones. So when you leave moments of success along the way, people know that the credit should go to you, instead of waiting till that final milestone moment where 20 people are around the award and holding it. But if you can show moments to success, that's more powerful, or just as powerful as those moments where it's, here I am with an award, yay. So having those things along the way. I think another thing is watch the self-deprecation. We're so good at self-deprecation. Oh no, not me. Oh no, I'm not going to talk about my successes and our put downs with that. So watch the self-deprecation. There's a huge call for humility right now in leadership, but not all of us need to hear that. That sounds so loud. We already have a lot of humility. We know we are already here based on the shoulders of giants, and that we have been paid for along the way, and that we are good listeners and here to serve people. So watching the humility level, I want you to ratchet up your ego and not ratchet it down. And Lan, I appreciate that you're about servant leadership, and bragging and self-promotion is telling the world how you're here to serve. But we get confused with servant leadership, thinking servant means I'm just going to drift into the background and wait until I'm needed. And then I'm going to come forward, and when the bell is rung, and I'm going to come in and then do my thing and hide again. And we get this way because we think we have to be a servant leader, humble leader, and not claim our strengths and stand in it. And so just watching the nuances of the language really matters, that for people to know how you're here to serve, they need to know what you've been successful with.
That's such a great point. And I know one of my credos has always been, as a manager, as a servant leader, that you always, when things go wrong, you take the blame, but when things go right, it's about your team. And it's one of those things where it's hard to do that for yourself. And I think that's why most of the people who follow Community of Seven, my audience, are servant leaders. And there's that same kind of ethos about being humble. You, in corporate, you need to be able to shimmer and shine. You need to be able to promote yourself in order to help other people. And that was my aha moment, is I couldn't serve anyone. I couldn't help anyone if I wasn't out there, if I wasn't promoting myself and what I do and my talks, and people like you getting in front of people who need to hear your message, right? And I think that notion of service, you need to tying that in, was pivotal for me, that you can't help anyone, you can't serve anyone unless people understand why you are in the place that you're at and that you belong. So I want to read some of the comments here. So Lee says, I've recently asked a few testimonials to post on my news site. It's been affirming for me. I've winded my sails at this juncture of my journey. I love that. That's such a great idea, Lee. And sometimes, like, I know for me, when I go through my website and the webmaster needs some updates, and I'm like, I don't remember what I do. And I go through my inbox or my post in terms of events I spoke at and projects I've worked on, and I literally forget about these things. And I'm like,
so quickly.
Yeah, I spoke at Columbia Law. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. And I was like, I'm pretty awesome. But it's so important to kind of catalog that in that brag book, because you will forget. And I find it so ironic because a lot of moms, me being one of them, are so good at keeping a brag book for our kids, right? Oh, look at his little feet and his little shoes at 1 month old. But we can't do that, have that basic decency for ourselves. There's such an irony to that. You'll scrap little momentums for your kids, but for yourself, there's nothing. So I want to open this up to questions. I know there's some great ones here, and I think a few people asked, does anyone have a question? They could raise their hand. Or Sherry, do you want to unmute and ask your question, or do you want me to ask the question you have in the comments? Sherry, if you want, just unmute or I'll ask.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about what you can do if you're in a corporate job and stuff like that. And quite frankly, I left corporate jobs because it was totally unfulfilling. I felt unrespected, and there were the people that promoted themselves better and what have you like that.
So Sherry, so just to summarize the question for Lisa, I guess Sherry's question is, what about entrepreneurs? What about people who are out of corporate in terms of why is self-promotion, why is bragging important, and how do we do it?
How do we do it is the main question.
Yeah.
Without looking like a stuck-up snob or something.
You know what? So a lot of the lessons in the book are for entrepreneurs and for people in corporate, because I've been an entrepreneur now for 16 years. So I totally get it. And so one of the first things I'll say to you, so there are lessons that overlap all the way through for sure. But one thing I would say is make sure that you are not your business. So often so when I owned my content company, you wouldn't know where MediaFace, the content company, and Lisa Bragg started and stopped. I was so immersed in my company that I didn't have my own personal brand, my own professional brand is what I call it, of who I am in the world, because I was so in depth in the company. And I think anyone in corporate too, when you become your title, that's a problem. So make sure that you're distinct from what you're working in so that people can see how you as an individual shine. Because when you as an individual shine separate from your company, then you'll get more opportunities because of that. So making sure that you're distinct as you work in your company but you're not in the weeds all the time, that you are separate is one of the critical things to do, especially if your company, you end it, whatever financial reason, whatever happens with it, I'm sure all of it's going to be great, but you make sure that you're not entwined with your company, that your identity is one and the same. So that's one thing I would definitely say to do right now. But especially if you're a solopreneur, you're out there talking about your company all the time. So you really do need to make sure that you are self-promoting. It goes hand in hand so easily to get out there and share the awesomeness of your business. And you can also collaborate with other people. We're so worried about competition, but often when you look at your competitors, there's a space that you can actually collaborate together. So consider that. So if you have some people who you are thinking they're the competitors, but you can find common ground and perhaps collaborate. And then when you collaborate, you become stronger together. And I've had several instances of that in my career where I've said, you know what, that person's doing really well over there. Oh my gosh, they're such a competitor. But then when I realized, oh, you know what, how can I flip this and become a collaborator with them? Then we are much more powerful together, because you also move into more of an expert stance when you're not afraid of your competitors. So getting those alliances together really does help any business. So think about that in terms of as you grow your business, for sure. Yes, collaboration community is so important. Finding where you want to go to with your business and then helping to market towards that.
Yeah. And I'd love to add something too, just because as an entrepreneur and having just been through this myself, being able to help people, whether it's through content on social media, posting content, writing, contributing articles in different media publications, which I know is your kind of expertise, Lisa, is really important. Like just making sure you look at it not just as I'm bragging about myself, it's how can I help other small business owners, like whatever your focus is. Let's say your focus is on widgets. You're the expert on widgets. So this is what I know about widgets. This is how to sell 1 million widgets. This is how I did it. That's not about, oh, Lan is amazing and the best. This is how I do what I do. And this is how I'm going to help you do the same. It's not bragging. It's basically teaching people how to get better in a lot of ways. And that's altruistic.
Yeah. And we get so caught up in the self-aggrandizement word, where that is that puffery, that ickiness, where I'm better than you. And that's where we get confused with bragging and self-aggrandizement. I think maybe because it's a bigger word and we just lumped everything under bragging. But self-aggrandizement is the word that is that ickiness, that I'm looking down on you. That's the word. That's the problem, where bragging, shine and shimmer, bravery, that's really the root of it. And then it became tarnished as people wanted us to stay in line and keep under their thumbs. So that's the problem with it. But it's really shine and shimmer, bravery. And if you keep that definition, I think another thing too is that, and it's going to some of the comments in the chat, is that we're so conditioned to stay a certain way because we're so worried about what will they think? What will they think? What will they think? And that is that's problematic, because we're worried about what they will think, thinking that we can mind meld with them and I can control your mind, and I can't control how you receive my information. And so much of it is context. We can't always talk about our successes with our families because they know you as that mess up when you're 16 or the whatever it is. And so they have a hard time reconciling you of today, this very successful person, with the young person that you might have been through all your mistakes and trials that we go through. So sometimes our families have a hard time when we talk about our successes with who do you think you are and all the things that go along with that. So context matters. In the book, I use the example of so often we feel off if they're standing in the harbor with yachts all around them and pretending it's their yacht. Wealth is one of those things that we find very tricky to talk about. And I usually say to people, avoid wealth, but you can talk about luxury, but avoiding wealth is easier for people. But if we're in the harbor and we're saying that's my yacht, and it truly isn't, that's where the audience feels the disconnect. But if you're in a harbor and that's your yacht and you're with a whole bunch of people who have the same yachts, then that's context when you're talking about your yacht, right? So context matters to what you're saying too. So what you say to your family versus what you would say to your boss or your collection of professional friends, then it's different than what you would say to, it's all different depending on the context.
Julia in the comments has a great kind of observation. We are so conditioned as women to remain humble and stay respectfully quiet as we, sorry, I lost it for a second. We're basically, as women, taught to be humble. And there's almost, is there a double standard for women and particularly women of color as well in terms of bragging? Because I feel like sometimes if a man does it, it's different than when a woman does it. It's perceived differently.
Yeah. And that's a big thing where a lot in the research I found, women did report, actually, everyone reported that there is a perception that women are penalized more often than men for bragging and self-promotion. And so that's where, do we wait for things to change to brag and self-promote? Or so how do we change things? And I really believe that we need to change things by being the leaders. So we have to put ourselves out there and start doing it. Is bragging and self-promotion risky? Yes, it can be, because it is part of something that's taboo. But I offer, isn't it more risky to stay the same, stay in your spot, and actually lose your value because the corrosiveness of invisibility? And if you think you can't self-promote in your position because you just want to stay where you are, I just want to stay where I am, so I don't need self-promotion, you're actually at risk there too, because when we don't self-promote, people don't see your value. And it's so easy to fire that vendor who doesn't show me her value, or fire that employee who doesn't show me his value. So it's so much easier to dismiss someone when they're not, you can't see their successes. And so we need to make sure that we're constantly putting it out there and amplifying it so that people see what we're here for and why we're here, because we're constantly being reevaluated in this world that we are in today. It's moving so fast. And there isn't that long-term relationship. Your client is leaving, your employer is leaving, people are it's the churn of it all. Even if you're planning to stay exactly where you are, things are happening around you. That means that you have to actually get out there and self-promote.
So what are some specific strategies of self-promotion that have worked for you personally? Because I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think starting where what I did was really go deep in some of my associations. So I think that's really critical, where people are always like social media, which I think is valuable too, but it's also can be a full-time job. So going into your associations and going deep and finding the network in there is critical. So just a simple thing is going into whatever associations you belong to, communities you belong to, and putting your picture up there and adding some context, and then starting to reach out from people on those associations. That's a simple way of getting started. I even gave a simple tip to Anne when she showed up. Anne and Michelle were here early. Showing up early is one way of self-promotion, because right away, shout out to Michelle and Anne, do us like the dance, because then people get to know you. And you can do this with in-person events and online too. Show up a few minutes early. And it's great for parents who have to leave early too. I have to leave early. Well, show up early. Everyone's going to remember you. It's also the easiest time for small talk because everyone's a little lost in the wind at the beginning. So we're all figuring out what we have to do. So show up. Another simple thing is actually be enthusiastic. So I'm not saying be Pollyanna, no, but be enthusiastic about things. If you're going to an event, show up and be enthusiastic and participate. It's such an easy way to get all those gold stars that you want that help you be seen and heard without actually doing much. But being enthusiastic, showing up at places. When you turn your camera on, people see you too. So how do you show up and be enthusiastic in whatever little place? So those are some small things that you can do for sure. But in the book, I have some thinking points that I want you to do. So there's a whole bunch of self-reflection piece to consider. And then there's to do. So these are small action steps that you can do right away that aren't going to take you a lot of time. And then I have to share, because I believe this work that we're doing is about sharing. So while again, bragging and self-promotion seems all about me, it's really about how I'm here to serve and then elevate each other. Because when we shine a light on someone else, that light is so amazing. It's going to come right back and shine even brighter on you. So there's a whole section in each chapter on how to share this information and help other people to shine too. So if you are so afraid of doing this work and you're saying, Lisa, it's not me, another good place to start is how do we amplify each other? So one challenge, Lan, if you don't mind if I do this, I would love to challenge everyone on this call right now or anyone listening in the future to find one person on the call and amplify their posts, because it just drives me bonkers why we constantly amplify celebrities or the same posts over and over again. Yes, they are good, but there's so much genius in this room, in this community. Go find a post, like it, and copy one of the comments that the person wrote. You don't have to come up with anything new. Go into her post, find some nugget of truth that you agree with, pull that out, put quotation marks around it and say, agree. That's it. Or just even highlight that. Because it does matter when we can see people celebrating our work. And when you think that it doesn't count, it does count. So there you go.
Only for today, while you're for those who are watching this via live stream or in the Zoom audience today, post something about Lisa, the book, anything you want. Tag me today on LinkedIn and I will make sure to like and comment. Only for today. So tag me today. So we have homework for you right now. So comment. Tell people about Lisa's book, but tell me more about the power, and I think this might be the last question, the power of networking, because I actually was introduced to you, Lisa, through Leslie Elm, who spoke at our event. And so it's like this kind of like the 6 degrees of separation. How important is networking to self-promotion?
Lan, you just gave me shivers, because I bet if we spent another minute, we'd find all these other people who we're connected with. And the world
Trina,
is.
I met Trina, who was on this call, who's your publisher, through Leslie.
Yeah. And so the world is smaller than we think. And so when we tell people how we're here to serve, then it's okay, Lan needs this. I can help Lan with that. Or Trina needs this, or Anne or Michelle or somebody else, or Lee needs this. I can help you with that. And our networks are amazing things. And so when you start to access your network, then you're going to find someone else that you have something in common with, and someone else, and all the opportunities will come to you because you're accessing your network. You're saying, here's how I'm here to serve. Then they're just saying, oh, you're needed here. And people love being that connector. They love it because it gives them the endorphins, the serotonin boost to say, I've done something for someone else. Because humans do really most of us really do want to help each other. And so when we help each other through networks, it's incredible. So access your networks. Ask people for help. They want to help because we all feel good about it in the end, but contribute to your networks and give and take and give and take. What's so funny? We often don't take enough. We give a lot, but we don't take enough. So
Can I pause you for a second? Because people don't know this, but when you look at Community of 7, and I had this aha moment like after year 1 of building it, is that Community of 7 is really and I call them our community raindrops, a community of givers who need to learn how to take.
Yeah.
We're taught to give and give, but then you need to be able to put your oxygen mask on. You need to be able to elevate yourself so that you can help teach and inspire others. And unless you put your oxygen mask on, unless you develop yourself, unless you promote yourself, you're not going to be able to be as influential because you won't have that same level of voice or brand, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. We're doing that. Yes, you're doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for everyone else too. So if you could see it, it's so hard to be the first too. I'm the first at this. I'm the first. But if someone else can see it to be it, isn't that a joy? You're giving someone else so much more because of it. So it is a challenge when we go first in things, but then it just helps everyone. But accessing the community and saying, here's what I need. I really need this. Can anyone help? And other people are going to be like, oh, that's nothing. I can do that for you. Meanwhile, it probably would have been a 50-step process for you. But if you have someone who'll say, oh, I know someone, I can open that door for you. We have to ask. Other groups are networking all the time. Hence golf. Like they're networking all the time. So we need to also access our networks and say, here's what I need. Does anyone have this information? And then make sure if they give you anything that you thank them. So many things are in the follow-up too. We just don't follow up enough on things. Somebody might not be able to help you today, but if you ask again and say, hey, I'm here. Anyone have this? Then somebody eventually will come along or point you in the right direction. But our networks are so valuable. So make sure you take from it too. But we are givers. And that's part of the whole thing about being a hidden gem and putting our head down and doing good work. And eventually someone will notice us. But if we instead say, here's how I'm here to serve, here's what I need to then get to that next level. And I think just so many good things are going to come from the right people being in the right place at the right time. It's going to help all of us, this whole world.
Love that. So time is up, but I want everyone who's on this call watching the live stream, buy Bragging Rights right now. It is out. It's an amazing book, please. And then make sure after you buy it and you read it, I know you're going to be awed. So just make sure you post and comment as well and let other people know about it. And you all know the deal. For those who are in the live Zoom audience, put this in gallery mode, unmute and turn on your videos. And let's give Lisa a big round of applause. Woo-hoo. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
I helped so many people today, and everyone who's on the call, make sure 24 hours, create a brag book, post something, tag me, tag Lisa in the next 24 hours. You got your homework. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.